back working at it. It's Jim Beebe and Lucas Lorian in the library today. We have Dan Wenger. He's the head strength coach, Ball State University. He hails from South Florida, grew up there, played at University of Florida, played at Notre Dame. Offensive lineman, so big boy, guy after my own heart. Graduated from there, worked on, got his master's, continued Stephen F. Austin, Western Michigan, Florida. Now he's at Ball State. He follows Ben Armour, and now he's the man. He's running the whole show. So if it's budget, nutrition, sports psychology, people coming back from injuries, progressions, and all things strength and conditioning for the football team, he's now the guy calling all the shots, in charge of the weight room culture. He's building these boys into men so they can battle out on the field. Dan, welcome today. Great to have you on the show. It's like out of almost 30 episodes, it seems like 8 or I think maybe a third has some type of Ball State tie. And it just started with Zach Riley and then my son Jack. So I don't know what happened, but just seems to kind of work out that way. I think the Cardinals need to have us on the payroll here at some point, but it's
probably.
It's good. Welcome to the show, Dan. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you guys for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Dan's married. Got a little girl, 4 turning 5, and a boy, he just turned 1. So the family is growing. And one of the things I noticed when I looked through the research that that questionnaire we started everything off with, you said that your professional goals change a little bit, and as your family starts to grow, it's not so much that like many college and pro coaches where it's bound from city to city, so you advance. At some point, some people say, I've had enough of that. I want to take root, and that seems to be one of the things that seems to be a priority with you and your family right now, right?
Absolutely. My wife works here at the university as well. She's the assistant director in the School of Journalism. She actually used to be a strength and conditioning coach as well. We met while I was at Western Michigan. She was at Miami of Ohio. She always knew she wanted to get out of coaching and have a family, and figuring out where kind of her path was initially into academic support for student athletes down at Stephen F. Austin. When we transitioned down there from Western Michigan, and then taking this opportunity at Ball State in August of 21, she transitioned into just general academic advising at the university, and made some connections and did some really good stuff, and is now the assistant director of the School of Journalism. So the same time while doing that, she's also in her doctorate, which she'll finish in 2026 for education. So, and like you said, with my daughter getting older, she's a year or so away from going to kindergarten, kind of getting to that age where she starting to have friends and starting to those sorts of things. And I know it's different than being a teenager, but still I want to be aware of their needs and my wife's goals and what she wants to accomplish. And, like you said, roots for my kids. And Muncie's great for us. And, I've got no problems with it. And my biggest thing is I don't want to be selfish because, I think probably early on I was. And, I want to make sure that her needs are met, my kids' needs are met before my needs are met.
So would you support student athletes? I call that the pencil lady. If you watch the TV show on Netflix, right? The JUCO football team, what's that called?
Last Chance U.
Last Chance U. And she kept asking a lady on the show, hey, are you bringing a pencil to class? Hopefully it was a little more advanced than that episode, but I get that, right? Some people probably need a little more hand-holding, but that's great. And I know the School of Journalism, with David Letterman and in the media school, it's actually a world-renowned, place for that type of career. So that's awesome. I saw that, you played at Florida. Swamp Kings, Urban Meyer is from 10 to 15. When were you there? You were there after that, weren't you?
Yeah, so that was actually sooner. I think it was 6 to 9, 2006, 2009, or
right.
maybe 10. But my only year there was 2011. It was Will Muschamp's first year.
There you go.
So yeah, I just missed it. But I mean, I worked under or played under Mickey Marotti. There's still some holdovers from that Urban Meyer staff. So, but yeah, I mean, it was just missed it.
Just missed it. So do you remember working with Mickey? Because the reason I asked, we had him on one of our episodes recently. So
yeah,
any insights with that guy? I liked him quite a bit.
It was awesome. I mean, I had a lot of fun training with him. And I mean, I think, if you go down this path and become a strength and conditioning coach as a collegiate athlete, training is probably one of the best parts of your day, if not the best. And for him to, me to experience him and still have a connection with him and speak to him to this day is awesome to me. We have our strength and conditioning coaches conference coming up here soon. I'll be able to spend a little bit of time with him and talk with him. But I mean, training it was hard. It was difficult. And I loved every minute of it with him.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Getting kind of into it, each coach has some basic philosophies that they all subscribe to, right? And some are completely different, but there's usually some type of commonalities. What are some things that you're bringing to the table, to the culture, that Ben Armour didn't quite have, that you're doing something a little differently, or you're building upon? What's going to be unique and different that's specific to Dan Wenger that wasn't quite what Ben Armour was all about now that you're running the show?
Well, this offseason we ran and we didn't run, but we built towards a more conjugate-based system. So we had to start off teaching them how to box squat, how to sumo. Those were our two primary movements on our dynamic effort lower body days. I would say just kind of having more of a max effort, dynamic effort, 4-day split throughout, and then really that kind of led us into actually throwing some accommodating resistance on the bar. Started off with single chain, 2 chains, and then worked our way up from light bands to medium bands as they got more comfortable and they were better with the technique. We did the same thing with sumo, but we just stuck with just chains. I mean, I'd love to have an opportunity to be able to pull with bands, and have actual platform that a deadlift platform that we could hook the bands up to, but we don't have that luxury. So we just typically stick with chains when we're sumoing. We could use some bands when we get into, conventional deadlifting or rack pulls, anything like that. But, I think that would be the biggest thing, just kind of having those, that type of setup. My big thing was really not messing up the next day. So we kind of eased them into the week with, some light, linear tempo work, aerobic conditioning work, and then, had our, it started off more sub max, but, was kind of coined our max effort upper. And then we followed it up the next day with acceleration, some COD work, and our dynamic effort lower. Wednesday was typically an off day, which actually led into our OTAs and skills and drills. Thursday was turned into our dynamic upper, and then Friday was our max lower, and we sprinted. So, and really kind of the way it looked as we went through those 7 weeks of off season, Thursday ended up just being a, hey, we're going to do a dynamic warm up, get you loose, because they had 2 back-to-back days of OTAs with the football coaches. So, knowing that, hey, we're going to come in, we're going to get a little bit more volume upper body wise with our dynamic effort work, to make sure you're recovered, ready to go. So, come Friday, we were going to sprint, and then we were going to squat heavy.
How did the culture receive that? Like, how did kids receive that? Because one, there's a learning curve on the movements and how to add those things, moving correctly. We did box squatting today with our CrossFitters, and it's challenging to get people to understand sit back, vertical shins, blast off the box, just using your hips and your glutes primarily. And when you're used to just free squatting, it's a totally different animal. And then getting the idea behind, hey, we're not as much Olympic lifting, but it's still, we're looking to get stronger, we're going to get heavier. It's going to be submaximal for a lot of it, but we're really trying to add a lot of base strength to the entire program to build up that component? How do they go about the learning, and then how do they go about the change in culture? How was that received?
I think there were a few rough patches early on. For the most part, I had a good relationship with a lot of our guys previously. So for many of them, it was pretty easy as far as buying into it. But technically, as it comes easier to others than most. But we were kind of driving a knee forward type squat. If you want to call it Olympic style squat, whatever it was. And it was difficult for them to, like you said, understand pushing back. So, one of the things started doing as we went along to help with that, we threw a band around their waist, partner was holding it, and hey, push your hips back through the band. So it was a lot early on, but we finally got to a point where, we're pretty, proficient with it. We still got to, coach it all the time, but, it took a while, and that's why we didn't throw any sort of accommodating resistance on it for probably 3-4 weeks, just to worry about that. Because as you guys know, like as soon as you throw change or bands on the bar, even if it is just a barbell and not even a specialty bar, it changes the way that groove is with the actual box squat pattern. So, we had a slow build to it, and really when it came down to it, for me, our big emphasis as far as what was a real lowest hanging fruit for us was posterior chain strength, and even without accommodating resistance and as light we were going, because we were still in those dynamic effort percentage ranges. I think even for the first week we started off at 25% just to continue to work the technique. But once we got it and guys started seeing that, we ended up going and doing a little mini combine day, and as slow as we went with it, guys' numbers as far as like a 10, a fly in, 20 fly, vert, broad, things like that, were at where they were in the summer of last year. So we were moving in the right direction, and that kind of just solidified and gave proof to it. And I think the biggest thing was I was transparent and honest with everybody. Like I didn't care, this is what we're going to do. This is why we're going to do it. And you guys tell me how you feel when you go out there and you perform on the field, when you're going through Indy, when you're doing stuff like that. And majority of them felt a noticeable difference, the ones that, fully bought into it. So, we still have challenges. We still have, some guys kind of sitting on the fence, and I'd say for me, kind of going back to the original question, like I'm not like, if you ask what I might go to, it's going to be a conjugate based system, but being where I've been, especially at SFA, working with a ton of Olympic sports where you have to know and learn a lot of different methods to use based off the group that you're working with and based off different demands of sports. I tell everybody this, I'm not necessarily married to a specific method. I'm married to what do we need to do to address problems to move the needle for performance. I don't care about numbers. I don't care about that. Like I'm confident I can get guys stronger, but is what we're doing transferring out to the field? That's my biggest concern. Is there a difference in our output when we go to sport? And so right now, we had, after the off season led us into spring ball, we had a 3-day template where it was, again, submax effort, lower, upper, and then a dynamic total. And that's when we kind of started rotating exercises in a true conjugate fashion. So with that, we did not do any single leg work because we were getting a ton of single leg from practice. We did not catch any cleans because of just the nature of football and banging and hitting and, don't need to catch cleans. And we kept it outside of our main movements. And we kept everything very simple. Those accessories didn't change. We manipulated volume and intensity on those, but, and on top of that with us, it's unique because we started spring ball the week before spring break. So we had 2 lifts and then they were off for a week. So it's, hey, we got to kind of tread lightly as we go into spring ball, but then on top of it, after they come back, tread lightly coming back into getting squared away for the week. So, which went well. It went really well. Coaches here, bought into that kind of, slow progression back up, but, finished spring ball well, relatively healthy. And, now that we're out of spring ball, we had 1 week of mandatory training. And, okay, what are the things that we didn't hit for 5 weeks of spring ball? Well, we didn't do a lot of single leg work. We did, single arm work, So primarily what we're doing is a lot of unilateral work for a couple weeks to, correct some asymmetries and work on those sorts of things. Also want them to recover from spring ball. So we're doing overcoming isometrics where we're pushing, pulling, squatting into pins, those sorts of things, to get that maximal contraction and, eliminate the wear and tear of rep after rep and, the late onset muscle soreness, those type of things. And then we're doing GPP on top of it. They have 4 different stations that they got to go through. They'll warm up, go through 4 GPP stations. I'm kind of using those as an activator, prep to come in and just get the work done in the weight room. From battle ropes, med ball throws, sleds, carries. We're doing, if you guys have seen Cal Dietz spring ankle series and the different positions from, low thigh to mid thigh. Yep. All that stuff to, really kind of lead us to where we're going in the summer where, I'm not going to be worried about, hey, what's our, from a, linear max velocity speed. I'm not going to be worried about, hey, timing fly-ins. It's going to be, okay, that game speed, that game decision-making speed that we got to get better at because anybody can run in a straight line. It's great. But what about when we're contested, when we're playing? And now that we're in, getting closer to ball, when it means something, that's what I'm looking at. So, and really a lot of that comes down to force production and rate of force production. So, and that's kind of where a little bit of this, what we're doing now has come into it. And it'll definitely develop as we kind of get out of it. We'll do this for, a total of 3 weeks and then we'll kind of transition back to normal, to lead us into summer when we come back. May 20th will be our first training session. So sorry, I know that was a lot there, but
not quite the record for the longest answer, but you close. That's awesome.
Sorry, I'm just excited about the summer.
Nothing wrong with it. Excitement's good. It's real. So when you're changing things around, do you search and seek out some basic lieutenants in the weight room that you can lean on that can champion your ideas and causes and also demonstrate the movements that for, freshmen may not have even done some of these things ever, whereas juniors and seniors may have. You seek out and find some, captains or lieutenants to kind of help be your mouthpiece to the rest of the group to kind of understand why we're doing things. Because if you're used to one way, now you're doing something a little differently. Is that something you had to lean on, or how's that work?
Yes and no. I think a lot, and I think a lot nowadays. There's a lot of guys that are afraid to kind of be the leader of the group. To really kind of, rally the troops, so to say.
Why?
I think because people are worried about upsetting someone and not being friends and, that type of bullshit. But, a lot of guys,
You said it.
But I think a lot of our guys, some of our better guys were better kind of in their little group at their rack. And I think that's how we really – we're starting to get guys more bought in. Mm-hmm. And then I also met with everybody this last week, every single player on the team, and, gave them a questionnaire, evaluate me, let's talk about it, gave them a voice. I think that's one big thing is kids nowadays want a voice. They want someone to listen to them. And I gave them that opportunity. And I told them that last Friday when we ended, like, hey, you guys have to be willing to have these tough conversations. You have to be willing to have, hear some hard truths, the hard criticisms, because there's a lot of people that are in your ear right now that have no idea what they're talking about. And I'm not going to sit here and lie to you or make you feel good. I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. If it was good enough, all right, probably, I'm a little bit more on the Louis Simmons side of like, you did what you were supposed to do. So I'm not always going to be like, hey man, that was a great job. But like,
That's the standard.
if something's not exactly, if something's not right and it's out of place, then it needs to be corrected and you're going to know about it. And if you're not living up to it from, how I want the intent in the weight room and, those sorts of things, I'm going to let you know. Because at the end of the day, when, it's happened before and I have several kids come up with, I want my squat to go up. Can my squat go up? Like I have like a budget of weight for their squat. And it's like, you're not squatting proficiently. You have no fight or strain in the hole. What reason are you giving me to bump your squat up or bump anything up? You say you want these things to go up, but you don't want to do the work. I'm telling you exactly what it needs to be. So, like I said, a lot of hard conversations I've had with several individuals, and it is what it is. I can't. I can't.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Any big eye openers where the survey came back and it's like, oh shoot, I missed on that one. I learned something there.
Not necessarily. There were a couple outliers, but they were of guys that weren't of the best workers. Sure. So, and I told our guys that, I asked them one day last week, I said, do you guys know what a trend is? Like something that continues to happen over time. I said, part of the reason why I send this out is to see if there's any trends. And most of the trend is like, I'm all in. Like, I want to do the work. I want, all these sorts of things. And, we had that occasional, like, sometimes you're tough and it's, I don't feel comfortable. I'm like, there's a certain level of intensity you got to bring in the room, man. And if you don't have it, like I told one guy, I'm like, offensive lineman, do you play, like, do you flip a switch playing football? And yeah, like, okay, well, why not do it in my room? It's the same thing. I tell these guys, get violent in my room. These four walls in the football field are the two places you can get the most messed up in the head and get after it. Just operate within the standards and expectations that we have. Train hard, push each other, compete, those sorts of things. To me, it's one and the same.
Right. It makes me think about today, actually, whenever I had a kid that we just came off of doing maxes 2 weeks ago for football. And one of them was real close to hitting 405, didn't quite get it. So that's all this kid is thinking about is getting this 405. And so we're going into a peaking block, a heavier block, and he's got some weight he's supposed to do for 3 reps today. And he's like, can I go up to 405? I really want to hit 405. I'm like, well, I just want to see you hit this. I want to see you hit this first for 3, because that's what's on, that's what we have today. And he puts it on there and it's not moving like he's ready to hit 405 yet. And that's kind of talk to him like, man, it's like, it's not happening today, buddy. Like, let's, we got plenty of time to work on that and get better and get stronger, than attack it when it's time to hit 405 again. But right now you need to hit this and you need to hit it faster, so he was upset about it, but at the same time, he's got to understand, like, I'm dealing with just high school kids, and these kids are learning how to, we're just now getting to a point in our program over here where kids are starting to get emotional. And they're starting to get a little emotional attachment to their work that they're doing. So anytime I cut them off or anything, they get upset and they're like, man, like, they get mad at me. I'm like, well, it's not a bad thing, because it used to be they didn't really care. But now it's, you need to show me that you're ready for 405 before I even let you even think about it, But we got time to get there.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah. And it's the same at this level. I mean, we got a guy that, can probably, if we pushed and like made the effort to it, can probably squat somewhere between 750 and 800. Legit.
Okay.
Like, absolutely legit. And it's like, hey, we don't need, like, you're strong enough to play football. Okay. But, the bar is just like a steady, like, it's the same up, same down. Like, how fast can you be strong?
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm worried about with you. And I think that's probably one of the most challenging pieces, is getting kids to understand on a daily basis, regardless of what's on the bar, if it's just straight weight, accommodating resistance, whatever the intensity is, of training with intent.
Yeah.
And just getting after it and moving the bar fast, And I think, dynamic effort's a great way to be able to express that.
That's something.
At any point in time, it's a game of force, and you're trying to exert force against the ground or a player or the field or the water, depending on what sport you're in. And if it's lighter or if it's heavier, you're still trying to move as fast as possible. And people get lulled into, hey, I'm squatting 135, and then 225 and 275, whatever, as they're laddering up, and they're just kind of casual about it. I try to emphasize over and over that you're just constantly building that force, so you're always maxing that out, so you can develop that force production so you can move the heavier weight, but also your CNS has to get ready for it too, and then your mind has to get ready. Hey, we're attacking. I'm putting everything I can on that bar, right? And it's not just, all right, I'll flip the switch once I hit 85% or three reps above 90. I'll flip it then. It's like, and I've done that. I'd bench 225 and I'm like, oh, that feels kind of heavy. And then 275 or 315's on there. I'm like, oh, it's actually lighter. And my wife, she's watching me and she goes, oh, well, you drove through the floor more. You set your back like you're supposed to. You weren't fucking around. And then the heavier weight move quicker. I'm like, yeah, that's just being casual and lazy. Disciplined on the earlier sets, and everything matters. Everything matters.
It's funny.
I find some high school, and I don't know, I can't say so much about college, but some high school and definitely college coaches, I find that they're afraid of raising absolute strength. It's all about velocity-based training or dynamic, only. And I'm like, yeah, the guy moves 135 really great, but he needs to be able to move 405 fast and be a 550 squatter and move, 135 is great, but you got to still have absolute strength, which then helps build up your speed strength, and it's all related. But you find that to be the case that there's some programs or schools are like, man, just keep them safe. I don't want them hurt, and then they go on the field and they're underprepared, and then they're hurt.
Yep.
What do you find?
I mean, I agree 100%. I look at
easy question.
It's to me like before I took over, we were in talks of getting a velocity-based system here, and it's like, okay, that's all well and good. And then I took over, and digging and asking some questions, was able to put some things on hold, and it's like, number one, I was in a position where I was potentially starting this thing off completely by myself. Like I had to replace myself and hire, replace my position, previous position. But then, my GA was, had some things in the works, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to plan for the worst right now, and it's just going to be me. How am I going to do this? And it's like, well, this system doesn't make sense if that's the case. And on top of the fact, if he is staying, then, if I find a replacement for myself, I have to get a new staff squared away. Then taking it a step further, it was like, hey, budget-wise, do we have this enough, year to year to year? And it was like, not sure. And I'm like, we're done. If we don't have it for something that we can, continually be like, we're not just going to do it for a year. It doesn't sure. give me what I need. So, by the time, just with the chaos of everything that's gone on this entire semester, like I ran our GPS last year and for the past couple of years. Like I haven't even fully ingrained them into it, because we can't track data inside, and there's no point in putting them out.
Sure.
Plus we had several other things that were way more important. We were working on like getting our guys fed better, doing different things, nutritionally, getting sports psych involved, all these different things, because like in the grand scheme of things, if you said, hey, you can have GPS and, we have 30 units, or you can feed my guys more.
Right. More bang for your buck.
Do you think that there's too much emphasis on people like gravitating towards velocity-based training? I feel like everybody, if you're not doing velocity-based training, you're not up to date. You're not training how you should be. For me, I feel like it's kind of unnecessary a lot of times. I feel like if you're always training for, a certain number, a certain velocity, and I understand the whole, the velocity curve and the weight and the meeting your peak speed and stuff. But like, now you see high schools doing it. You see high schools getting elite form and doing all this, and everything that they do is tracked on a on a velocity based training system or whatever. And it's just sometimes I wonder, I'm like, is it? Because for me, my biggest challenge where I'm at, and I deal with very untrained athletes, and they're getting better, they're getting trained, but they're probably not. They don't need to think about moving weight so fast right now. They probably just need to learn how to squat and get stronger squatting, or bench pressing and picking up weight and moving and getting stronger that way. And because I just see it all over the place. Like, I don't know. Do you think it's an overemphasized fad or trend right now, or what?
I do. I think there's some people that rely on technology too much. I think it would be a great, in my mind, what I would use it for, obviously, it'd be great to have on dynamic effort days. Would be absolutely awesome to have. Now, from, a sub max or max effort day, like I would use, all right, I'll prescribe what intensity we're going to be at. And it should be moving at this velocity. If it's not, if it's, if you're moving it way faster, let's add some weight. If it's moving too slow, let's take some off. Where I view that as like, hey, now we're actually getting as close to training optimally as possible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right. That's the way I look at it, how I would use it. But I think like you said, with the speed velocity curve and all these different things, and just using it, I mean, all the time. I mean, even the GPS stuff, like looking at every single metric. I mean, our things spit out almost 200 different metrics. And, when I took it over and got here, initially it's like, all right, what are the main ones we need to look at? What's the biggest thing? If we're looking at and it's like, okay, we want to see, kind of our tempo yards, our aerobic capacity. So we know kind of how to train that way. We want to see XLs, decels. We want to see high speed yardage. Okay. Those, top speed zones. What are they hitting in the red? What do we need to prepare them for? And even into, what I call the dead zone, those, speed zones that are not giving you any sort of adaptation from a, moving the needle as far as getting faster or, getting you better aerobically conditioned. So, you know what I mean? Like that's like, we chopped it down immensely when it's just like, these are going to be too much, like to sit here and try to,
we all these fallen in that trap 2 years ago with our student athletes, especially the younger ones. And we were doing, everything was being timed, all the sprints. And I'm talking to our coach and I'm saying, these kids are 10 or 12 or 14. I'm like, they can't land off a 20-inch box without their knees coming in. They can't do a 1 times body weight squat. And I'm like, dude, just stick with 5x5 for a year with them. And if they get better, do Wendler's 5-3-1. Like you don't need any of this. So when I got someone that can squat 405, but I put them on a legit box squat that's super wide and their vertical shins and it's 185, I'm like, perfect. I can get you stronger with less weight on your back, so less risk. Your whole backside is exposed. So I build that up for the next year. You're just going to box squat and sumo for the next year, and then I'll let you free squat again. And everything's, it's so easy that all I have to do is take the most basic things. I don't need to keep adding anything else, right? Yeah. And you can't do a pull up. You can't hold the weight on your back, and you want to squat it, but you can't hold it. Your core's so weak, you're caving in. And they're like, well, I want to do these pull-ups. And I get adults. I do them pull-ups too. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to do 200 ring rows a week for 6 months, and it's going to be boring as hell. But guess what? It absolutely works. It's the most basic thing. And it's the fundamentals. It's the non-sexy thing that really fucking matters. All the other shit's nice. And then there's a place for it. But if you can't hit some basic minimums, Matt Wenning would say, you're 10 years into lifting, you're still a novice to beginner. You're not even intermediate. That's 10 years. 10.
Yeah.
10. Right? Oh, I want to clean this. I want to clean that. Yeah, you catch it like you're doing the splits on the balance beam, bro. Like, no, can't do that.
Yeah.
Can't do that. Well, we could talk Conjugate all day long. What turned you on to Conjugate, Louis Simmons, and et cetera? Have you been to Westside? Some people have they love it, they hate it, and I think of Conjugate as just powerlifting. But before we move on to other intangibles and things about getting better, Why'd you go with that? Why'd that speak to you?
Well, when I was at Notre Dame, a lot of my coaches were very conjugate based. Ruben Mendoza, Rick Perry, those guys were. It was awesome to me to like sit there and get under the bar and just shit. We got this, and there's these thick green bands on it. Like, what's this? Doing the lighten method and those type of things on bench and
that's fun day.
So that was, oh yeah, but that was where it really started. But we didn't I didn't come into Notre Dame and get to that point right off the bat. We were basic. We were okay. Similar, hit these certain markers. From basic strength level type stuff, and then it's like, all right, as we get into the off season and some special times of the year, like we can, start diving into some of this a little bit more. We really didn't get into the sumo part of it. We didn't get into much deadlifting with them. It was still more Olympic based from our pulls. But our squats, our benches, we would, bench with chains, bench with bands, squat with chains, bands, all that stuff. Just all throughout the off season into the summer. And like you said, you do that or something like that. Like, people don't understand how much, if like you just box squatted and you box squatted properly, and for say if it was just six weeks, you didn't free squat, how much easier a free squat is afterwards from a mobility and just overall strength standpoint. Like, people think it's like the mind boggling. And like, I've done it several times of like, okay, like when I had baseball at SFA, sprinkled it in for one of my variations. Like, all right, we're going to free squat today. May look shitty, but whatever's going to challenge them. That was kind of their point to, at that time. And like, you would have thought we've been free squatting for the entire semester. And then we went for, this giant progression of like body weight to, freehand, goblet all the way up. And it's like, no, we just box squatted. So that's where it started. Then when I finished playing at Florida, and went to rookie minicamp with the Jets, got cut, and went back to Florida as a graduate assistant coaching football with the offensive line. There was the assistant there, Jesse Ackerman. He's now back at Florida, actually, but he was the head strength coach of the Atlanta Falcons for a little bit under Dan Quinn, his time there. But I went down to him and I'm like, hey, this is really what I want to do. Like, I love football. I love coaching football, but I cannot sit here behind a computer and breaking down film and only be out on the floor, out coaching, whatever, for one time a day for 2 hours and then just stuck in a windowless rally. I'm like, this isn't me. I'm like, this is what I want to, this is where I want to go. So, talking with him through it, still talk to him to this day. Just talked to him last week and, kind of what we were doing and how we were doing it. And, a lot of my ideas that I have, like, I'll bounce off of him. I bounce off of Rick Perry, and just kind of, hey, does this, times when I kind of get uncertain, like, I'm overthinking it a little bit. I'm like, kind of, hey, help me out just from a, am I overthinking this, or just to get their opinion? Because they've been doing this, twice as long as I have. Both of them have helped me immensely, and it's, why not? It's two guys that have helped mentor me tremendously, and those have been the kind of the start of it. I did go to Westside twice. Both times when I was at Western Michigan, actually. One time I spent like 2 or 3 days there. And then another time I was actually
with Tom or Louis or both.
More so Louis at the time.
Okay.
And talked a little bit with Tom. I didn't talk much with him. The second time I went was when I was at Western Michigan. I was actually and make this make sense, but as the assistant strength and conditioning coach there, I was also the advanced travel personnel for the team at the hotel. So when we went and played Ohio State, and like, all right, hotel's getting set up. I'm like, I got like 8 hours until the team shows up. I'm going to drive over to Westside. And, what else was I going to do? So we Yeah, and he had a couple linemen there that were had either recently just been cut, from the final roster cut, and I just trained with them. Just talked with Louis for a little bit and trained with them, and it was awesome. I wish I would have gotten back before he had passed, but and I still want to with Tom there leading the charge. But that's where it started, and I took that as I was Western Michigan. I had cheer and dance. It was one of the deals I had to do, and they box squatted and they sumoed, and like it wasn't like I wasn't purely obviously they're going to get better in what they do. It was a lot of untrained individuals, and a lot of it for what they did made sense, and we addressed their needs. But I was like, if I can coach cheer and dance individuals to do this, then I can coach anybody to do this. It was kind of my mindset. It was like, prove this to yourself type deal.
I've always heard and experienced myself, anybody that works at Westside, they are so accommodating that anybody wants to come in and talk with them. We had Tom on the show, similar to you. I was in Columbus. I showed up there and I emailed Mickey as well. They both said, hey, come on, this excellent, awesome knowledge. Tom seems to always have worked more with the athlete side, the sports side. Louis more powerlifting, and then also he worked a lot with a lot of the fighters. But Tom deals a lot more with the athletes. Now the powerlifting is basically gone and they have different product and service. But did you ever hear, Tom's first day in America story is on our show. He lands, he's from Ireland, and he's on his way to work and intern with the All Blacks. That's the New Zealand's rugby team.
Yeah.
And he got an email back from Louis, said, yeah, you can come work for us. I know you have only 6 or 8 weeks between here and your stint with the All Blacks, but yeah, you come with us, for 6 or 8 weeks, whatever. So he packs up a bag and flies from Ireland, lands in Columbus, and he needs some food and some provisions. And so he gets a cab ride to Walmart. He buys some food and a frying pan and a bicycle. Got his bag wrapped around his body, his duffel bag, and his other stuff on these handlebars. And, the directions from wherever he was to Westside included getting on the highway. So he's on his bicycle riding on the highway, right? Cops take some mercy on him and they pull him over. Hey, dude, what the hell are you doing? And he's like, I don't know. I just landed here. I'm trying to get the Westside Barbell. He goes, oh my God, Jesus, you're gonna die today. So they put the bike in the back of the car and they put him there and they just drive him right to it. And like, hey, get out. Don't ever fucking do that again. And that was how he started. And things went so well, he never went to the All Blacks. He just stayed there the whole time. And
that's crazy.
Yeah, whole new deal. Different coaches have different philosophies on extra work. So if someone comes in, maybe they're a walk-on or maybe they're not. Maybe they're just not strong enough. They're just not fast enough. Their whole posterior is weaker than everybody else, and they're playing running back, and they just can't exert enough force. And they're doing the program that you have. They're like, hey, coach, I'm ready to go again. Or some guys, they just want to keep lifting because they like, hey, I want bigger arms or whatever. How do you legislate or manage people that are trying to close those gaps physically? They're like, they're willing to do more. And then there's a whole recovery question that comes into play, but they want to do more and it's outside the normal hours. How does that work with you guys? Because some people say, get the hell out of here, this is all you're doing. Don't come back. And other people, like at Ohio State, they got staff there all the time. So from 5 a.m. to midnight, if you want to come in and work on some shit versus playing video games, come on here. We'll work with you. How's that work?
For me, I'm of the type, hey, let's talk about it. What are you doing? Because our guys will just freelance and they have no idea. And, sure. I think there was one time it was like, a guy, he wanted to get his bench up. So he starts going over there and doing all these, different dumbbell press variations and triceps and everything else. And it's like, dude, we're pressing tomorrow. This is not the day to do it. You know what I mean? And like I said, I'm big on don't mess up the next day. We want to do extra, like that type of stuff. Like I'm good, but let's not go into the lift, having just pressed, because God only knows the type of volume and intensity that they were planning on doing it at. Like, so it's like, hey, like if you want to do extra, let's talk. What is it exactly that you want to do? Okay. And all right, man, you want to do extra biceps? I mean, go ahead. Like
You'll be all right there.
It's not hurting my feelings.
I usually tell kids, if you want to do any extra work, any kind of core work, that's going to recover pretty decently. Any more kind of rowing or pulling for your back, probably going to recover pretty decently. If you didn't hit any neck or anything like that, anything grip related for sure. Curls for the girls, fine. But try to do it the same day. So if we're squatting, come back in and maybe we didn't do any calf raises. You come in and do a little bit extra of that. Try to keep on the same day and 20 minutes, put it in a circuit so you get a little GPP and a little bit extra blood flow. All right, get the hell out of here, right?
Yeah.
But then I'll also ask, are you 1.2 times body weight in protein yet? No? Well, before you want to lift anymore, let's figure out what time of day you're adding your extra meals in, right? So there's always these ripple effects. You want to lift more, you need more water. You need more lifting, or you need more protein, you need more sleep, right? Are you getting all these things because you say A, then B, C, and D must then follow? It's all rolls in together.
Yep.
What about when someone comes in and talk about perception and athletes? You could, for a long time, they'll say, well, only white guys can play quarterback. And they'll say, well, only black guys can play running back. Then there's McCaffrey and there's Warren Moon, right? So talk about perception in athletes. Perception, hey, this kid is a 5-star athlete. He should be this good in the weight room. This guy's, a walk-on. He should be terrible. Talk about how perception kind of holds some kids back, but then how do they go about breaking through those glass ceilings? How do they go out and win people's trust? They can do certain things.
For me, I don't care what you've done. Like, I don't care. Like, I tell our guys all the time, like, in the room, like, doesn't matter to me, like, who you are, what you done, what your playing time is, like, doesn't matter. It's all the same. There's no starters. There's no second string. There's none of that in my room. And when you look at some of those things, I guess, like I said, I never feed into that. Like, it just doesn't matter to me. Like this room is about, performance for me. What are we doing to move the needle? And it doesn't matter what position you play. Like, I'm going to try to, program and build a plan for the demands that you need to be successful. I'm going to put you in that position. But I mean, I've played with plenty of guys, I like to say, look like Tarzan, played like Jane. Like, looked apart completely and just sucked. They sucked at ball. Or, another one from, Will Muschamp that he loved to say, couldn't play dead in a Western. Like, those type of guys. And it's like, some of those guys are your best lifters, and that's awesome. And it's for whatever reason, whatever it is, they can't have it transfer. And maybe sometimes it's just a lack of, toughness, and you don't like contact and those sorts of things. And, so I never try to, I'll say this, I want all of our guys to be successful, whatever they want to do, like playing wise, everything else. Like, I don't dictate playing time. I don't get into that. Guys will come and talk to me and get worked up about it. And I get it. Like, everybody wants to play, everybody wants to have a role, but like, you want a fair playing field. That room behind me, I mean, that's as level as it gets.
That's about as fair as it gets. The number is still the number. The speed is the speed. Do you stand up with the bar or do you quit, right?
Exactly. And a lot of those guys are guys that you just said it, quit. Right. I want to be better, and I want to start, and I want to do all these things. And it's like, but you don't fight in the room.
Right.
You don't fight when you get a bar on your back and things get tough. If we are, manipulating tempos and isometrics and things like that, and, you won't sit there and strain for 4 seconds in the hole and hold and act like a statue and then drive up as hard as you can. Like, your unwillingness, it's not your ability, it's not your talent as a football player, it's your unwillingness to fight, to strain.
Right.
And if you're not going to do it here, what makes you think you're going to do it on the field when you're colliding with another person? Like,
that's one of Ohio State's mantras is the word fight. It's written on the wall in their practice facility. one of our core values is the word sisu, which is from Finland, which means you never quit or you don't give up and essentially commit suicide. It's guts and entrails. The way I apply that don't quit is that it's you run through the line. It's if I say pull for 4 seconds on the bar, you're going to pull for 4 seconds and you don't quit earlier. You don't quit on your teammate. There's a lot of other forms of quitting. And whether it's the speed or the strength number in the weight room, what I find which translates is, can you be in pain and handle it without bitching and persevere? In this instance, then you have a shot of being in pain and be able to handle it on the field. You can handle the pain of having a conversation with your boss or your coach or your wife. You can have the pain of, hey, I lost that sales account and I'm on a commission-based job here. I need to make some more money to make it happen at home, right? When you can handle pain consistently and not quit, when I say like making the squat is life or death, and it's not that you're going to die today, it's that how you approach the squat and it's how you approach the field, it's going to determine the rest of your life. So you're not dying today, but that approach and that mindset it builds your character to the point where this is how the rest of my life is going to look like. And when it's painful, I'm good. And that's the only thing I can say that seems to translate. If you're not going to be a pussy in the weight room, at least give a shit. You're probably not going to be a pussy on the field.
Yeah. And I mean, I think back because, I mean, talking to my staff like a couple of weeks ago about, I mean, I remember there a few times like, if you train by yourself, you don't have someone to train with, and it's like, all right, like, I'm going to do this weight. One of two things are going to happen, and it's not going to be going down. Like, I'm not going to allow myself to do that. Like, I told them a story. I was doing some band neck work, and I mean, I was taking it out there far, like doing some, like isometric holds, and like all of a sudden, next thing you know, like I'm on the ground, and I'm like, what happened? Because it just passed out for a second, and it's like, all right, whatever. Get back up and finish the set. Like, that mentality is not around anymore. And I think, I hate to say it, like, and some of these kids need to go get in a fight. They need to get their ass kicked. Not only like from a fight standpoint, but metaphorically as well. Like, you need to have life, like, kick you in the ass. Like, it happened plenty of times to me, plenty of times as a player, plenty of times a kid comes to me, it's their first surgery, and, they're, in such disbelief and distraught and like depressed. And it's like, dude, you're going to be fine. It's all right. Like, I had several of them playing, and yeah, it sucked, but you know what? You fight through it. Like, you just continue to do it. I broke my wrist. I mean, just like Jack did. I did that. And unfortunately for me, I did them both. My left wrist didn't heal. And it got to a point where, hey, you know what? I'm tired of, after the last doctor's appointment, like, hey, man, this thing just doesn't look good. It doesn't look like it's healing. I'm just like, all right, then can we take the cast off? No. Okay, then I'm going to rip it so I can grip a barbell and train. Like, I'm not going to continue to hold like, I'm going to find a way. And,
right.
And, like we had spoken before, like, I know, you guys did some extra work with Jack as far as him coming back. And it was like, we were doing all the same stuff, like manual resisted, band, every angle that we could. And it was like, all right, you know what? Thing's not working. Thing's broken till today. Like, fracture if we x-ray it. Don't care. Let's play. Like, I want to play football. I want to train. It is what it is.
I had forgotten that, because right after, 2 games ago, he made that tackle on kickoff, and then the guy fell on him. So that's how it broke. And then he finished playing, and then they put this club on him for the last game. Did fine. But a week later, they have surgery. And then he comes home for Christmas. He's like, all right, what do I do? And I said, so you can't do anything with your hand at all? He's like, no. I'm like, all right, so, but your wrist is fine and your elbow and your shoulders? He's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, so if I put my hands against your elbows and you got a lateral raise like this, or pull back and bent lateral raise, or I can put some bands around your arms, can you do dumbbell flies with the bands around your elbows in the elbow pit? Can I get you doing flies like that? He goes, yeah, I think I can do that. I said, well, we'll put on a medium band and just go until the pain's really bad, and then keep going a little bit longer, and then we'll pick some other exercise. I'm not going to have a rep scheme. I'm not going to have a max effort thing on here. We're just going to go until it really hurts, cause some adaptation, then we'll move on. And we'll do a shit ton of legs, and we'll be in the bell squat, and we'll be marching your ass off. And you'll you'll be dragging sleds until you can't see straight, but you'll be making some gains. And when the cast comes off, Wenger's going to be like, well, shit. I think because there's an answer to every fucking problem, right? There's always an answer. There's always an answer. It's not perfect. You might not be where you want to be, but it's better than taking a big fucking zero. Right?
Correct.
So move forward.
Yeah.
Get me all wound up here, Dan.
You know, that kind of gets me.
Sorry, I apologize.
Thinking about
That's all right.
What's your so you got your full staff with you now? You got okay.
Yes.
So how do you go about your return to play protocols, and how do you kind of manipulate that and maneuver that? Guys, hamstrings, wrists, whatever it may be. How do you go about?
He tells them to rip the cast off and get going.
Exactly. So I have to work closely with our athletic training staff. And so once, they tell me when we can start doing some certain things, we'll start doing them. I will try to toe the line and, try to cross it as much as I can. But obviously, I'm sure you guys are familiar. Every doctor has a specific, injury and, one that they do that they, it has to be by the book. And instead of, treating the patient, we're just treating, certain time frames and, that sort of stuff. But I approach it the same way I do programming. It's like, okay, what's the problem? What's the need? Okay, let's address it. I don't, how do we, we're never going to mimic the same forces that we see on a football field. Okay, but what can we do to progress them closer, as close as possible to that it's like, hey, let's give them some limited reps and into your team or whatever it may be, that it may not be all out to just, get them the confidence and get them to the point to let them rip. And I think just like any injury, it's a case by case basis, kind of treat the patient, not the actual injury. How are they responding? A lot of times it's day to day. How do they respond from that amount of work? I still like to operate in a high-low type of system. So it's not just continued stress and then, kind of build them into more, high, medium, low, high type, to give them more especially if we're in season.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know if that necessarily answers it completely, but, I'd be more than willing to, show you some stuff that I've done.
Yeah. So what,
what's
what's that one injury that you're just like, damn, I got to deal with this injury again? Like, what's the one that you just don't like dealing with?
All of them?
Like, is there one that's more difficult to deal with?
Yeah.
Like, for me, it's knees. Every high school kid that I deal with seems to always complain about their knees. And it's, I'm always having to change something for the kid that's, oh, my knees hurt today or something, you know what I mean? But so that's just wondering, just curious about what's.
Quit shoving your knees forward when you squat, right?
Correct. Exactly. So yeah, we, for me, I'd really say just, and more so anything that just randomly comes up. And like, they got guys that are like, oh, I heard something, felt something click in my shoulder. Okay. Like, I pick up this pen, my shoulder clicked. Like,
what is that your response to him too? Is okay.
Pretty much. Like,
is there pain?
What would you like me to do? Like, do you want me to enact our emergency action plan and get an ambulance here for you? Like, is your shoulder clicked? Like, what's the problem? Oh, I'm just, it clicked. Am I okay? You're okay. Like, you're fine. And it's like that in multiple things. It was like when I worked with track and field at SFA, it was like, oh, we can't do, whatever I call them, eccentric glute hams, like a Nordic, a Russian lean, whatever you want to call it. We can't do that. I feel like my hamstrings are going to pull. They're not going to pull. Your hamstrings are not going to pull.
Right.
It's not. Just do them.
I hadn't done those in a while and did them last week. I was wrecked 2 days.
Did you pull your hamstring?
No, I just saw it. And it's like, oh, well, fuck, I haven't been doing this for a while. I've neglected it. So here's my reminder and my reward for being undisciplined. That's simply what that was. What was your moment in college football where you're like, holy shit, man, this is college football and this is a whole different animal. This is not just me whooping ass in high school. There's men out here, and I'm gonna get fucked up if I don't do something right here. What was your moment where it's like, okay, this is different? Welcome to college.
Probably within the first week, that first summer at Notre Dame, sitting there and obviously my class, the freshman class, was separate. And I think we were going through the weight room for measurements or something, and or a little orientation when we first got in. You sit there and all the vets are going, and you're seeing 5-6 plates on the bar, and you're just like,
fuck.
I hope I can do that one day. Like, I really hope I can be that strong.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, all right, this is a different deal. And like I said, go back to just, hey, fight your ass off, man. Like, I wasn't the biggest, I wasn't the most athletic. And, I argue that I trained a lot harder than about most, if not all. I also, from a football standpoint, I studied my ass off. I knew the game well, like those type of things. Like I knew I had to have a great football intelligence for, like I said, I wasn't the best athlete. Like, I wasn't, and I wasn't the strongest, but like, yeah, do we get to a point where we're, throwing 5-6 plates on the bar? Absolutely. Yeah. Squatting.
Those are all things you can control, all things you can work on. So, Lucas, our one of our mantras, win the day, and he's wearing that shirt. It's, if you're not happy, like if you take Jack, and he didn't play at all, he didn't see the field his freshman year, didn't go all the games, and then saw some limited his sophomore year, and they got more on special teams his third year. So let's say he starts his fourth year, or let's say he doesn't, or maybe it's his fifth year. Like, to go that many years and not really play, you're not going to be happy until that day. That's years. You can't be happy. Well, that's not really that sustainable in terms of getting your maximum performance. So what I got to try to do is show these kids is, how can we win today and have some kind of joy in our life, so I want to come back and be in pain tomorrow. Otherwise, if my horizon's 3-4 years off, it's so far off, it doesn't even feel real. I don't feel enough pressure that I can actually be intense. So if we can have 5 or 6 targets for today, maybe I can be the best in the weight room. Like you said, maybe I just want to study an extra hour on the playbook or on your iPad, so I can actually win and be so much better in this one area, and then feel good about myself, and then stack those wins, compound interest effect. Talk about how those kids really kind of need to buy into that, because they might not see the field for a while. They could be all state wherever they're coming from, and you go to Notre Dame, like all state's kind of like the minimum, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So everyone's all state, and everyone's could be an All-American, and everyone's could be these exactly. Are men. These are men out there, right? So talk about how you can get these kids to buy in and still make progress, because even from Jack's walk-on class, they aren't around, and there's other 3-4 star athletes that were recruited that they're not even in the game anymore. Some aren't even in the school, and that's across the board, right? There's attrition all the time. Could be injury, or you maybe made a bad choice, or maybe you just lazy. But there's always some, like Alex Bachman for the Giants. He's a walk-on in college. He's playing for the New York Giants and now the Texans. Like, that shit happens.
Yeah.
Talk about how that shit happens. How?
I think first off, it's a genuine love of the game, like a true, genuine love of the game. I think we are in a day and age of college athletics, college football, that especially at the higher levels, as far as, what are you going to pay me? Like, that wasn't a thing when I played. Like, I can't understand that. Like, I get that it's a lot of these guys are playing the game in relation to how college football is now. But, like, shit, man, like, if you would have sat here and said that was going on back then, like, I still, right now, as I'm sitting here, like, I can't think of, like, man, I was deserving this much money as a player or anything else. Like, I just wanted to play football. Like, that was enough for me. Like, and we we didn't have training table at Notre Dame at the time. Like we didn't have those type of things. It wasn't at, all football dorm. Like I didn't have a football roommate. Like I was roomed with a random general pop student, several of them. Like it was, nuts. So like I think from that standpoint, it's, lost what it is actually really about. And I mean, it's the best game ever. It's awesome. Outside of my family, I'd give everything up in my life and go back and be able to do it again. I'd love to do it again. But I don't know if that same love of the game is there for a lot of people. And
what if it is?
It's like what's that?
But if it is there, that love, carry them and sustain them to build the habits to make them winners.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, I was proof of that. I injured my freshman year, redshirted because I broke my wrist and had surgery. And then next year, came out starting and then got hurt again and missed time and then started the following year and then, was rotating the next year and then DQ'd the following year. And it's like, why go through 5 years of, getting the shit beat out of you just to play one more? And I wanted to end it on my terms. And I was told, hey, you come down to Florida, you're not going to start, because the guys that we have here at Florida were better than what we had at Notre Dame. I had the same offensive line coach. I was like, all right, I just want to play. I don't care. I just want to play. And, wasn't going to change any. Started 11 of 13.
That's good.
So, I mean, and I wasn't like, of course there was the part of me like chip on my shoulder, I'm going to prove you wrong type deal. But it was never like, it's like, you know what, man, I had it taken away from me and I didn't want to end it on that note. I wanted to end it my way. And I wasn't going to like, if anybody was going to do that, I was going to be the one to do that. And no matter what happened, I went into that year. I was like, okay, if I'm playing scout team all year, all good. Like they told me they were bringing me in to be kind of a player's coach because I was going to know the offense better than anybody else, Charlie Weiss's offense. And it was, hey, these guys don't know it. They don't understand it. We need someone in the room to help them. And that's what I was, but I just ended up starting too. And like how you talk about the training piece to it, like, I had 3 strength coaches when I was a player. I had, Ruben Mendoza at Notre Dame, Paul Longo at Notre Dame, and then Mickey Marotti at Florida. All 3 vastly different. All 3 I loved training under because I loved to train. I loved, I told this to our guys last week. Like I gave everything I had in training because I knew my coaches had my best interest in mind to get me to where I needed to be as far as being a better performer for the sport. So I trusted them, and
that's huge. Trust piece.
And like, it was no questions asked. Like, hey, coach me. Like, I want to be coached. Coach me hard. If I'm messing up, tell me, get me in line. But I was going to make sure like, hey, this is how you want it done. This is the demo. I'm looking at it exactly. And I'm trying, kind of going through those movements, whether it's, taking a rep on body weight and, feeling things. Like I was soaking everything in. And I think, it's, everyone wants to sit here and be like, yeah, they need to know the why behind it. Like, yeah, I agree. They need to know the why behind it, but it's at some point, sometimes like you just probably sound like, Charlie Brown's teacher to them. They don't care about the why. Like you said, Lucas, you're talking about, struggle to get guys in there initially, like because they don't want to be there.
Right.
And if it's a voluntary type deal, then you don't like to train. Why are you going to show up when you got whatever other choice you want to make out there to fill up, whatever it is? Like, oh yeah, like you said, starting is really important to me, but okay, if you want to start, you have to do A, B, and C. And one of those things are you need to gain weight. Okay. You need to train hard and you need to, okay, how do I do that? Well, you're not taking care of yourself outside of here. So really, how important is it to you? You're just staying up late and playing video games. You're not doing anything. You're not doing anything from taking extra snacks and meal prepping and whatever else. It's, do you really love it that much? Or are you just doing it for I played Division I college football. Pretty cool, huh? It's pretty awesome. So I can go back home to the local, it's the, high school guy. I didn't make it because I got injured. I didn't play in college because I got screwed.
No.
I told a guy last time, like, the only person you're screwing is yourself because of the way you go about this.
Yeah.
And if no one's willing to tell you that, I am. And if you don't like me for it, okay, because I'm not going to be the first person to tell you that. Tell guys all the time, what happens in the room are their life lessons, how you go about things. Like you said, learning to fight, learning to strain, those type of things, putting a bar on your back, something you think you couldn't do, breaking through a threshold. And like, what do you think the real world is like? Adversity, responding to adversity, persevering, showing strength, having the confidence of, hey man, I've been through some shit. I'll be okay. And I've, me personally, I've been through some shit, like, physically, mentally, family life, those type of things. So it's like, okay, yeah, things might get me irritated, but all right. Like, I know I'm strong enough for whatever's thrown at me. May suck for a little bit, but I'm gonna be all right. And I don't think that always is there. And I think our guys, I don't want to say our guys, but like just college football in general, like there's not a lot of people that had to struggle beforehand or know what like true struggle is like, and from a, like I said, fighting through some things, getting your ass kicked type deals, like
confidence comes from reps. We say it all the time. Tim Grover points it out for his cleaner, as his high-end athlete. They'll prepare and work their ass off. But when there's a situation that's coming towards them, they ultimately have the mindset at that point because they've earned it. I'll figure it out. It might suck. I might not do well. I might get beat. I might get beat this game, whether it's Dwayne Wayne when he's coaching him or Jordan or Kobe. But I'll figure it out. And you only get to I'll figure it out mindset. It's because you've been through enough unpleasant things that you survived, and you're like, well, shit. Like I tell a story about how my grandfather, he was a barber, and cutting hair in the 60s is great, but a lot of guys have long hair, so a lot of people don't want their hair cut. So sometimes he'll have 5 different barbers working in his shop, or 6, and he's making money off them, or just one. And so it's 80s and 90s. So, but in the 60s, my dad would tell me the story. His dad would come home, my grandfather. He'd go, well, how'd it go today? He's like, it was fine. And then the next year, how'd it go today at work? It's fine. It was always, it's fine. And then finally he goes, no one's getting a haircut. Like, everybody in my class is not, they all got long hair. Like, what's the deal? Are we making money or not making money? And he goes, I got shot in the face 6 days after Normandy, World War II. Like, what am I going to care if I'm a little low on money? Like, who cares? I was at North Africa, I was in Sicily, and I got shot in the face. I'm going to be okay if we don't cut enough hair this week to buy something, and the next week we'll be fine. Like, because you've gone through so much crap, who fucking cares, right? And then, exactly. So you get to, if you don't grow up like that, if you don't have the Ray Lewis and the abusive family, if you have a nice, comfortable upbringing, the challenges that the parents and the coaches, you have to fabricate pain physically somewhere so they have those mental toughness reps, right? That's real hard. It's real hard because you're not struggling for food. You're not struggling against abuse. You're just struggling because you don't have the latest iPhone, right? So then you got to be like, yeah, these kids are like, all right, well, you're going to get killed today because those 3 guys over there, they came from nothing. They're orphans, and they've been whooping ass, and now they have some purpose in life. They're coming at you because they're trying to win so they can eat. That's your opponent, and you're comfortable. So, man, how do you create that and build them up by fabricating, right? That is, you and I solved that problem. We're not on this podcast anymore. People are writing us $10,000 checks for 15 minutes conversation.
Oh yeah, that's what I told our because some of our better guys, like, oh yeah, what do we need to do to get guys to buy in? And I'm like, kind of those last few fence sitters, and I'm like, man, if I had it, I'd help us win a championship this year, write a book, and I'd retire a millionaire at 36 years old.
That's right.
Like, that formula, but that's, and I told him that's the beautiful thing about teams is trying to figure out that dynamic because it changes every single year as far as what it is. And
quickly for you guys.
Exactly.
1 year, Jack had 50% turnover, 25 new recruits, 25 in the portal, 100-man roster.
Yep.
Shit.
Yeah. And and not to get into it, but I mean, imagine what that looks like from a development piece when you're charged with that. You know what I mean? As far as, you may have a guy for X amount of years before he goes, or vice versa. You got a guy on a 6-month contract, and you better hope that wherever he came from had a hell of a strength coach, that he's got some, a lot of things that is more plug and play, so to say. But, yeah, I mean, for me, like, I don't fabricate anything with our guys. I'm completely honest with them.
Sure.
And that's the only way I know how to be, of like, this isn't good enough. Like, this is going to result in you getting your ass kicked, and you're going to get mad, and you're going to wonder why. And this is going to be the reason why, because you won't fight here. If you won't fight here, what makes you think you're going to fight on the field? Like,
there's getting your ass kicked. Then there's also getting hurt, getting injured, right?
Exactly. Or hurting and injuring someone else.
Yeah, right.
Because you got tossed as a 300-pound, offensive lineman that just, has no body control, no body awareness, and, is, not an immovable object. You're just like a piece of styrofoam, and you throw it into someone else's leg. Those type of things. But I was working with basketball once when I was at SFA, and kid, quit, things got tough, and he walked out of the room, and I called the coach. I said, I don't want him in the room anymore. I said, he's done. He's done. Now, I mean, push came to shove. AD got involved. I had to let him back in the room. I said, he's going to quit on you. I said, if he's quitting in here, he's going to quit on you. If he's going to walk away from here, he's going to walk away from you. And exactly probably a month later, he did. And it's like, the two are relatable. Like, yes. I'm not talking about from the standpoint of, that, but like your character is going to show through here or on the field, one of the two. And guess what? You spend more time with me, might as well find out who it is. And that's, how my evals were written. And on each guy, it wasn't about, hey, he needs, this is his numbers. Like, it doesn't mean much to a football coach. Like, it may, they may perceive it as that, but, it's like, this guy will fight. This guy will not fight. This guy cowers away from the work. This guy cheats reps, those sorts of things. Like, you guys need to know, because when you're counting on them,
coaches care about that kind of thing. The discipline and the integrity component. When you give those evaluations, hey, this group of guys are at this tier, and this is the next tier. Is that how the evaluations go? There might be, hey, this is the fastest receiver we have. This is the fastest running back we have, whatever. But what about those intangibles? Is that?
That's the way I go about it. Like, you want numbers, I can give you numbers. That's fine. But sure. like I said, those don't mean as much to me. Like, I know, regardless of if someone is like, if someone's going all out or not, like an 18 to 22-year-old kid who's training consistently, good or bad program, like, they're going to get stronger.
Sure.
They should be getting stronger. You know what I mean? Like, so you're constantly moving the needle, in that sense. But like, you want to know, okay, when you sit there and say, hey, this person's not in great condition or this person's not strong enough, we'll go back to that. Go back to what I said, that he doesn't strain or he doesn't fight. So like, don't come at me with, hey, we need to do something different, or, hold my ass accountable, when it's like, well, I told you guys what it was.
This is the card you bought.
The same thing. Exactly. What's the process in recruiting? You know what I mean? Like,
right. Because
we need to look at those intangibles. Like,
sure.
I can, you're willing to fight. Okay, we got a chance. Plain and simple. Now,
getting strong is pretty easy at that point.
Yeah,
it really is.
Okay, exactly. Like, you got to be, like I said, willing to go through the shit. And like I told our guys the first week, like, if you did not like where you performed week one, like, guys, that's all it is week one. It's a starting point. We got nowhere else to go but up from here if you choose to.
Gotcha. You had a brief stint with the Jets. Was it noticeable? Like you said, when you got to Notre Dame, holy shit, 5-6 plates. That's one component first week. Now, when you're at an NFL team, undrafted or whatever, or even if you are, sometimes you could be with the team for a day or two, sometimes a week. Maybe it's an off season. Maybe you're just there so other people can tackle you or whatever. There's different roles. And
Pretty much what I was.
Right? That's kind of the deal. They need enough bodies. So can you tell right then and there, it's like, holy shit, this whole tier, that's not me. Like or that is, or you know what, I can hang. Like Zane Fakes was here. He's a strength coach with the Colts. He played at Ball State, he's tight end, and he coached for our, my gym, and we had him on a couple weeks ago. Just released him. He's like, yeah, he had a couple teams he was looking at. Didn't get enough reps to make as much of an impact because you got to make an impact right away to turn anyone's head because they already think you're down here. But he's like, I think I had a kind of a shot, but I was definitely not confident. Like maybe not if I had some more time and some more looks and development. But at that point, there's not really a lot of time for development. There are 53 men on the team, and that's it. You got to be players right away. So he wasn't quite there yet. Can you tell when you're with the Jets, hey, you know what? Fuck, this is a whole different animal. I'm not quite that.
Yeah.
Or you're like, you know what?
And I wouldn't. Yeah, I guess I wouldn't say like I didn't perceive it as like I'm not quite that, but I was like, oh shit, like the speed of the game, like the overall strength and the intensity. I was a part of their rookie mini camp, got invited, and like I had the option of going to the Dolphins or the Jets in the same capacity, and the Jets had a better opportunity for me to make the team. Like they might have drafted one, took one in free agency, and then there was like out of this rookie minicamp, we were told like we're going to take one more guy. So it was like, all right, like you can talk about fighting your ass off. It was like that every single day, and for those 3 days. And after the first practice, I had asked, hey, can I get some center reps because I originally came in as a guard, but I played both and was more comfortable at center. And he's like, yeah, I'll make sure you get some center reps. And the one guy was, blowing calls, and the beautiful thing was it was the same exact offense. Tony Sperano was the OC. It was the same offense that Charlie Weiss ran. So like verbatim, word for word, play call, everything else. So I'm like, now you just got to go execute. And after the first day, it was like, he came in and he's like, Wenger, first team center. And I'm like, at that moment, I'm like, I got it. I got it. And then, like played the best football I ever played, did everything like that I could. And it was just in the locker room of like, hey guys, thanks for coming. Here's your per diem. Make sure you don't miss your flight. All right, sweet. And I was able to walk away from it, that opportunity. Like I was smoked, like emotionally exhausted. Like you want to talk about like central nervous system fatigue. Like that was probably one of the, most shot I was. But, after trying to get in, because that was one of the earlier camps of that draft year, everybody else, half the league was having the rest of theirs the next weekend, the rookie mini camps, and we were trying to get into one, and it didn't happen. And I'm like, all right, we'll see what happens. The UFL was still around at the time. Or I think it was like just about to fold, was looking at that. And then the only other thing I had was arena league offers. And then the opportunity with Florida came up, and I was able to walk away from it. Like I'm at peace. Like this is hard. This is difficult, but I did everything I could. But it was definitely like the speed of it, the intensity was like, oh shit. Cause I remember when I was at guard and pulled around, we had a power and I was pulling around and like, did everything I was taught tight to the double team and then like linebacker. And I'm like, shit. And then, Tony Sperano's motherfucking me for missing the linebacker. And I'm like, all right, realize I got to get my head around a little bit quicker. And that was like one of the few moments that I was like, holy shit. Everything else was just like, I kind of, went into a different place in my head. I was like, just go fight. Like, I said, just fight your ass off, see what happens.
When you do that, there's a calmness. It's like, well, I have no other options. I'm all in. There's going to be an answer one way or the other. You're not going to have any look back and think, well, what I could have, should have, because you went all in. And it's freeing in that even if you get beat, you're like, fuck, man, what else you want? I went all in other than cheating and breaking legs and taking steroids. This is it. This is me. This is my best shot. So you earn the chance to say, hey, I'm good, right? And you had those big regrets when you're like, I didn't do it. Because
Yeah.
when you didn't do it. But when you did, you're like, okay, I got it. What Zane said was like, when he's watching games and practices, he goes, with the velocity and the size and the strength and this overall size and the speed, he goes, I don't know how people aren't getting wrecked and broken on every play. Like, I can't believe there are injuries on every play because of the collisions. And I was like, dang, that's a whole different animal, right?
Yeah. And I mean, to that point, I finished playing at Florida at like between 300 and 305, and I got up to 320. I'm like, all right, if I'm going to play interior, I'm not the biggest. Like, I got to be able to, have a little bit more mass to me. Like 320, I was full, very full. And
I've been 320. It's hard.
Yeah, I mean, like the powerlifting of like, all right, I'm bend down and tie my shoe, and
You don't bend down.
to.
You don't bend down. You cross your leg and put your foot up on your knee and tie
Well,
your shoe.
I didn't know at the time. It was my first time being at 320, so and the only time I've been there. But yeah, I mean, like it was like, all right, like let's be strategic about this. You're not playing against interior linemen that are 280 to 300 like you used to. Like you're talking about
Vince Wilfork.
Vince Wilforks or BJ Raji's, the 340s, 350s guys, and it's like that's not doable for me. But 320 gives me a little better shot, know. So,
Gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, that probably helped mitigate some certain things from the velocity of the game, but at the same time, it was miserable.
Yeah,
being that heavy. But
yes.
Do what you got to do.
Always want to be respectful of your time and all. And we're obviously very, very grateful you've taken the time and generosity to help us out. Just like the guys at Westside do. So thank you. Just had a few more just to wrap up questions. If you got a minute, running Ball State's strength program, and you're obviously tied to the team. Would you rather see them win a bowl game or win a MAC championship?
Win a MAC championship.
Gotcha. They all say that. Okay. What do you listen to when you're training? You yourself.
Usually rock, sometimes rap. I'd probably say my go-to though is Rage Against the Machine.
Gotcha. Bucket list adventure. You haven't done it yet, and so it's like you and your wife. You can bring the kids along too, but it's a whole different deal with kids. Let me tell you.
Oh yeah, I told my wife we went to French Lick over spring break. I said all we did was just parent in a different location. This wasn't a vacation.
It's not a vacation.
No.
Let's say it's you and your wife. Cleveland, right? That's where I'm from.
Exactly.
My man. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably, we honeymooned in Tybee Island, Georgia. We loved it there. I'd love to go back or, Hilton Head and do some of those smaller islands off the East Coast, in the, Carolina area, Georgia area. Anywhere like that. That's probably
relax,
what I'd say.
Lose yourself.
Exactly.
Sports movie, you listed the program. So is it
Yes.
Alvin Mack or is it's Latimer, right? Everyone loves Latimer.
It's both of them.
Is it?
The whole thing. Just
broke my heart when Alvin had his knee blown against the Iowa game.
Yeah.
I was sitting there. God.
Yeah.
Did you see it in the theater?
I didn't.
Because you're too young.
Not.
Yeah, I saw it in the theater. I was at Purdue, but I'm 49. So you didn't see them laying down on the highway. Did you hear about that?
I did.
Yeah, and people died from that, right? People saw that and mimicked it in the road.
Yeah.
Halle Berry early on. That's going to be tough. Favorite sport, obviously, going to be football. Let's say it's not football. You got to coach a group. I know you had that stint with dance and cheer, so that's probably close to your heart. But, outside of that.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's really why I'm doing this. I'm just really waiting for the opportunity. I don't know what the Pacers dance. Yeah, whatever they're
You could be a bass, maybe not a flyer, but a bass and some spirit fingers.
Absolutely,
right?
No doubt.
What about
Um,
what about rugby?
I'd love to. I'd love to. I did have a really good experience with baseball at SFA. Baseball's really fun. If you get a
Mhm.
really good group, that's a group that you can really train hard and you can really see the output, of what you're doing is working, just through the sport. So, say
That-
definitely those two.
That's a lot of sunflowers and dip, though. Yep. Favorite book, The Daily Stoic. Is that the Holiday book? Ryan Holiday.
Yes, that's one.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but Find a
Um,
Way. Who wrote that? I don't have that one.
Merrill Hodge. It was
Oh, okay.
it was about
Running back.
his autobiography and just kind of his struggles and everything else and beating cancer and that sort of thing, was a gift to me, early on, and I think that, you know not just that solely, but just one more thing that added to the list of like, and that was one of my things, is, like you said, we'll figure it out. We'll always find a way. And I tell our kids, and one of the things I brought here, I just say FitFo, figure it the fuck out.
Right.
We'll FitFo, because that's what we're going to do. Like, and I'm not interested in, not having a solution or not working to find a solution. Let's see what it is. Okay. We know the problem is, how do we fix it? That's kind of my
Gotcha.
mentality with everything.
With superhero, you wrote Punisher. So is that from the comic books, or you saw the Frank Castle with, on Netflix? Those two 10-episode series, right?
Well, I didn't see that fully, but more so from the comic books. But yeah,
No shit. So you didn't see him against Jigsaw, the guy with against the mirror. You don't know what I'm talking about.
no, I didn't see that one.
That's going to be absolutely outstanding, Mr. Wenger. That you need to stop what you're doing and watch that series, especially episodes 8, 9, and 10 soon.
Okay,
It's awesome.
I will.
It is awesome. Oh, I like this one. Favorite villain you wrote? Joker.
Joker,
Is
yeah,
that the Heath
from the
Ledger
Dark
version?
Knight.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really any version. He's just kind of just a messed up dude that I just I feel like sometimes I can kind of go to that place and more so use it for good. I can relate to him some ways, just not blowing up cities and doing things to hurt people, but more so bring people along. But yeah,
Well, there's a violence that's equated to in your sports. So there's probably a little bit of that in there as well.
for me, no, not for me. I'm very, very soft at heart and very
Me too.
loving and caring and
Benevolent.
caring. I am.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I'm just, all around sunshine and rainbows in my
Me
weight
too.
room. No intensity, just clapping and cheering all the way.
Favorite lift?
Reverse hyper.
Love it. Mickey doesn't like him so much. Isn't that weird?
It's mixed loss.
Yeah, right. I'm a big fan. I tell people in the gym that and the belt squat we have from Westside, two of the most underutilized pieces. And anyone that has any kind of sedentary job, man, the reverse hyper, you're just gonna help yourself heal. You're just helping yourself
yeah.
heal. Not necessarily getting tons stronger, just gonna heal.
Yeah. I mean, even just doing them off of like the poor man's version, off an incline bench in a band with our guys
Yeah.
all semester. I mean, it
Works
was
good.
like our guys were in the training room like, oh man, my back's tight, my back's sore. And it's like, is something wrong? No, nothing's wrong. It's the first time you've worked your erectors.
Right.
We're good.
Yep.
Now, when we do get some of those machines come here early May, then it's going to be awesome I'll probably have to take video and send it to you guys as far as after their first time on them, after they walk out.
So you have them coming, is what you're saying. Is that right? If only I could have made an impact there.
Yeah, I got 10 posterior chain developers coming from Elite FTS.
Nice.
Oh, that's outstanding.
Yep.
Favorite way to train, you wrote Conjugate. That makes sense. $10 million, you'd still be doing what you're doing. I like this quote. I don't know who it's from, though. I will do nothing lightly. When I walk, I'll walk heavily. When I fight, I'll fight with conviction. When I speak, I'll speak strongly. When I feel, I'll feel everything. And when I love, I'll love with everything. Who said that?
When and I don't know if it was exactly he who said it, but you remember Evan Tanner from the UFC?
Barely.
He was, I think, early, like 2011, 12, 13, somewhere in that range. He went out in the desert, like on a hike, and he died. And like when it happened, at the time I was very big into UFC, not as much anymore. Just can't get away and from your kids and watching other men just beat the shit out of each other all the time. But when he died, this was one of the things that was kind of like all over about him and his life and how he lived it, and it just struck me at that point of like these that along with I know Louis has the Dylan Thomas poem, those two, it's like that's being intentional to me. That's living intentionally. Like that's what I want to do when I'm here, when I'm at work training our guys. Like I want them to have my best. When I'm at home, my wife, my kids, I want them to have my best. And try to be as selfless as I possibly can in those ways to, it's not about me. It's never about me. And regardless of what's going on, I'm going to try to always be the same person. I'm going to try to treat people fairly. I'm going to try to give people my best day in, day out. And I know I'm human and I struggle with that, but these two things kind of keep me in check from time to time when I get off. So,
well, you had the theme on if you want to do well on the field, you need to fight in the weight room. Your favorite book is Find a Way by Merrill Hodge, who got through cancer. You're finding a way. When I said there's a solution to every problem, you jumped all over it. You talk about this guy that died in the desert because he was all, and even till the end, he was all in. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage against the dying of the light. At Dylan Thomas, right? One, it was quoted in Back to School, Rodney Dangerfield, right? But you're probably too young for that. But then that's what Tom posted the day that Louis died on Instagram. And all those same themes throughout this last 90 minutes all come down to whatever you're doing, do as best you can, and give of yourself, and you got a shot. So if you're trying to build your team, give whatever you can. And all I hear is, I want to build my family, I want to build the people around me, and then I'm going to go to bed. Tomorrow I'm going to bite and do the exact same thing again. I'm going to keep pushing and pushing. And at some point I'm going to make an impact, and then I'm going to die, and I'm going to be okay with it. And that's what I absolutely love about people. Anyone else I find with a similar spirit like that, that's all I really give a shit about. So those are the folks I find to be fun. And then it's like, all right, I'm feeling all wound up. Let's go push sleds or squat something, right? But that quality, that trait is so powerful, and if people can grasp that and hold on to it and utilize it, they can go so much further than they think they can. And if anybody on that team can partner with you and latch on and know that you're going to push them, they will go so much further. Like David Goggins says, when you're ready to quit, you're only 50% of the way there. So I hope more and more people partner up and lock arms with you because they got a real shot. And so, Dan, it's been a great having you on the show. Thanks so much for your time. We're really looking forward to seeing you this season, and I'm sure we'll talk again down the road. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate your time.
For anyone else that has questions, you can always email us, info@athlete-builder.com. Be on the lookout for the Athlete Builder Summit. It's coming together real nicely, June 22nd. We're going to have half a dozen speakers from the Colts, speakers from CrossFit, nutritionists, doctors. So it's going to be a great deal on how to get athletes better. So coaches and athletes, be on the lookout for that. More news coming soon. So thanks so much, guys. We'll talk to you guys next time.